Greetings and salutations, fellow He fans. You have asked. I am here to deliver. Thank you for your patience. I have offered for many, many moons. I am finally here to deliver now that some of you are asking. My personal top 10 favorite episodes of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. Yes. Bit of backstory here. Family moved to South Haven in '86. I would have been about 2 years old. I first learned how to use the remote control and first discovered syndicated animation. Presto, there were He-Man and there was He-Man and there was She-Ra. I swear it was in that order. Still very common in '86 for them to be rerunning He-Man, and certain episodes of She-Ra may have been first run in '86. I'm not positive. I know they were made in '85. Anyway, moving on. A handy dandy reference guide for these episodes would have been this big old book from Dark Horse. I love this book. I've already turned the pages of this book many a time. There's Betrayal of Stratos. Scorpio without his hat. There's Betrayal. There's Khan and Webstore from Disappearing Dragons, along with He-Man. But I'm not about to ruin the pages of this book by flipping through them for every single episode I choose. So, that's just a handy-dandy reference guide from Dark Horse Books if you feel so inclined to someday pick it up. Now, He-Man ran for 130 episodes. For reference, She-Ra ran for about 92, I think. Many of these episodes, out of 130, many episodes were mid-carders. Most of them were somewhere in the middle of the pack. In 130 episodes, there were some episodes that should never be on anyone's top 10. There were some snoozers in there. I give you Driel's Return and Daimar the Demon from season 1, or Trouble's Middle Name and the greatest show on Eternia from season 2. Yeah, greatest show on Eternia. What were they thinking? Never bring a circus to Eternia. It's not going to work out well. Same with Etheria when they tried a circus-themed episode of She-Ra, but again, I'm losing track of where I'm going with this. Top 10 absolute favorite episodes of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. You've waited a long time. Some of you are starting to ask me some questions. Your wait is over. Here we go. At number 10, my personal number 10, we have Disappearing Dragons. Disappearing Dragons was fairly early in season 2. It debuted the characters of Mechanic and Cobra Khan because Buzz-Off and Webstore had already debuted in season 2. But they teamed up Mechanic and Buzz-Off and Webstore and Cobra Khan. They made 2 great teams. It's always great to see Granomir again. And Disappearing Dragons was honestly, I remember it being a lot better episode when I saw it on USA. And then promptly had to watch that tape over and over again because at the time we were still taping them. So it has a lot to do with childhood memories, of course, most of these episodes. The ranking system for them. It's always nice to see Granomir again. So this was Granomir's third outing with He-Man and his first in season 2. Moving on. Number 9. I swear it's in this book. Aha! Number 9. The Rainbow Warrior. Rainbow Warrior, right there. Queen Marlena never got enough credit, never got enough screen time, versus King Randor, whose screen time was to be screaming at Prince Adam anytime he existed in his royal presence. But number 9, Rainbow Warrior. It was nice to revisit Queen Marlena's origins as an astronaut from Earth, and she got to lead in a jet dogfight against Skeletor's hover knights on sky sleds. It's much better than I just described it. Skeletor has captured King Randor, Teela, Man-at-Arms, Orko, and Legasp. He's captured Prince Adam. Just before he launches an air attack on the palace. The guards are without Man-at-Arms or Teela to lead them, and unbeknownst to them, He-Man's not about to show up. Along come Queen Marlena in her antiquated Earth rocket ship that they had conveniently kept stored in the Royal Museum. It was a very nice episode with a very nice ending, in that Queen Marlena not only gives her son the credit that King Randor never gave him, but she finally tips her hand that she kind of knows about Adam's dual identity. Mother always knows her own son. Finally expressing a degree of pride in Prince Adam and in what he's capable of. It was a nice moment. I'm glad that thanks to the advent of the DVD collection, I could finally see that episode. There were a lot of episodes that I missed when I was little. I mean, somehow I just kept on missing them because I kept waiting for the reruns of my favorite episodes to come back up. Number 8. Number 8. Oh, not Frady Cat. Hang on. Battle Cat. Oops. No. Battle Cat. Yes. You know, Filmation short-shafted He-Man by not giving him the origin story episode. Mike Young Productions came along about 20 years later and corrected that. But out of Filmation, She-Ra got a 5-part origin story. The Sorceress got an origin story. We explored Orko and Queen Marlena's origins. He-Man's origin story was... never mind, I won't do it. I won't do it with a little prop character. He-Man's origin story was, I am Adam, Prince of Eternia and defender of the secrets of Castle Grayskull. This is Cringer, my fearless friend. Fabulous secrets were... I mean... Anyway, the point is, Battle Cat got the origin story that He-Man never got. And it was a good story. It explored a young Prince Adam and young Cringer as a little tiger kid and explored them growing up together. It explored the first time He-Man met Battle Cat, being the first time that Cringer accidentally saw the transformation, and yeah. What happened to Cringer? Love it. I love that reaction every time. Anyway. Yeah, that was a good episode, though. Nice callback. Number 7. I have to talk about House of Shakoti. Well, I have to talk about both parts of House of Shakoti. Now let's talk about how on VHS they were obviously on at least the same tape. In this case, due to on the DVDs, they did split them up. They did split them up on DVD, and I don't. Yeah. Anyway, House of Shakoti was the only 2-part episode for He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. It introduced Malaktha and Stanlin. It introduced Lord Mask, great villain Lord Mask, and his mistress Shakoti. Always more of a fan of Mask than I was of Shakoti. I said what I said. House of Shakoti Part 2 had some extremely spooky elements to it with the House of Darkness, and it played those elements off well. It was also one of the few times when Cringer understood that Battle Cat would be necessary, so he didn't run from the transformation so much as fetch Adam to tell him what Stanlin was up to so that they could get to the House of Darkness just in time to see Stanlin get abducted inside, and Cringer's response was, "In 2 seconds, I'm back in the royal palace, so you'd better lift your sword now." To which Adam agreed. I almost wish I had the VHS copy of House of Shakoti so I could have used that for reference. Did I say something about having some VHS copies for reference? Number 6. Pawns of the Game Master. Alright, you. Come on. Came off of this tape. It was these two, and these 2 still shots were from that episode. Pawns of the Game Master, the 2 lower still shots. When I was little, this was my very first He-Man tape. Obviously, if it was my very first He-Man tape and I'd gotten it when I was 2-3 years old, my original copy would no longer be in working order. I picked that one up as a replacement off of eBay. Anyway, I always loved a good episode where Skeletor wasn't the bad guy. Obviously, where would He-Man be without Skeletor? But there were better villains in Eternia. I said what I said. And it was always refreshing to see a villain other than Skeletor. Hello, the Game Master, a cosmic gladiator who abducted creatures from other worlds to do his fighting for him. And if you looked at the Game Master's minions, it looked like Panthro from Thundercats had appeared on Eternia. Anyway, Game Master arrives on Eternia and tries to abduct He-Man as a gladiator for his games. He-Man declines as politely as He-Man is about to do, and he and Battle Cat ride away. But the Game Master does not take no very easily and abducts Teela after he overhears she and He-Man finally expressing a great deal of affection for one another. There are some elements to Pawns of the Game Master that make it pretty great. I mean, Teela finally says something decent to Prince Adam just before she's abducted. It's one of the times when it's only natural that Adam would lose the power sword because he usually loses it out of his own stupidity or poor timing. And it forces Prince Adam's hand into being the one to sneak into the Game Master's ship rather than He-Man. Now there is a glaring problem in this episode, and it's the same glaring problem throughout the entire series of the noise, the lights, the sounds. Whenever Adam does the transformation sequence into He-Man, and all that the other characters have to be is a couple of steps off screen to not know the difference. In this case, he manages to transform right in front of the Game Master, who is only covered by a tarp, thanks to Orko. But, yep. You gotta remember, I was 2 or 3 when I was first watching this episode, so it's cemented its way into a great memory for me. Number 6. Game plan. Game plan came from this VHS. And it was that episode, the one with Orko and the giant fish. Thanks to Orko's bad magic that had nothing to do with game plan. Let me see this. Negator here. Negator. An electronics wizard, future master of all of Eternia in his own words, traps He-Man and Ram-Man in a giant video game. And he does so because he had been after Man-at-Arms and whichever invention of his. The beam ray, that's right. So again, it's a huge kidnapping plot. Negator kidnaps Teela. Man-at-Arms has to go to rescue her. He traps Man-at-Arms. He traps He-Man and Ram-Man in a giant video game. I loved this particular VHS when I was a child. I had to rent it all of the time. Oh. There's that Driel's Return that I was talking about. Should never be on anyone's favorite list. It was a childhood favorite of mine because of Clawful's debut, but... Oh, we're supposed to be talking about game plan. Right. Again, it's always refreshing to see a villain not named Skeletor on Eternia. Was Negator about to be one of the great villains? He had a second episode that kind of dethroned him from even where he was as the villain in game plan. That episode was called Trouble's Middle Name, and I already discussed how that should never be anyone's favorite episode. Anyway. In game plan, Negator was a great villain, I thought, at the time, and that opinion just kind of stuck after 35 years since the first time I saw that episode. In fact, on the DVDs, it was this episode that I managed to wear out on the DVD about halfway through until I managed to clean the disc. So, success. I could watch the episode all the way through again, and I have tried. Where are we? The Dragon's Gift. Number 4. Dragon's Gift. Granimir's very first appearance. I hadn't even seen this episode until the advent of DVD. The late Larry DiTillio, had a great character in Granimir and the Dragons of Darkswell. And I loved that he constantly brought them back. Twice in the first season, twice in the second season. Once for She-Ra. It was just enough Granimir to keep the fans begging for more. But Granimir's very first appearance is what set the tone for him to be a great character. And always refreshing to see again. Heck, the Dragon's Gift shares this VHS with Daimar the Demon, which I've already said we've talked enough about the episode Daimar the Demon. The Dragon's Gift, yes. And for the Dragon's Gift, part of what made it so great was that He-Man was put in kind of a difficult spot of making a decision to cut down a tree to present to Granimir in order to save Man-at-Arms' life. Now, he couldn't do it, but he earned Granimir's respect just the same. Wisdom, compassion, and the honoring of a bargain. Who would have thought that mankind would have improved so much in 1,000 years? Granimir's words, not mine. Number 3, the Diamond Ray of Disappearance. The Diamond Ray of Disappearance. To truly appreciate the Diamond Ray episode, you have to watch the whole thing, and you can't do that with the advent of DVD because the Diamond Ray of Disappearance was the episode where about a minute's worth of footage, about 3/4 of the way through the episode, disappeared from the DVD releases. For reference, the VHS tape, The Greatest Adventures of All, had the full Diamond Ray episode, but it didn't have the moral segment afterwards. That one, the moral segment I didn't see until it was on DVD. But the Diamond Ray of Disappearance, in broadcast order, was the first episode of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. Not so in production order. Broadcast order, it introduced the villains by name and did more, it introduced Evil Lyn, the Sorceress of Night, Triclops, Master of Vision, Trackjaw, Wizard of Weapons, Merman, Warlord of Water, Beastman, you furry fool! I love it. I loved the opening scene where he was summoning, where Skeletor and Beastman were summoning the other evil warriors from wherever they happened to be across Eternia. And it also introduced Man-at-Arms, Teela, Stratos, and Ram Man. Well, it introduced everyone if it was the first episode ever broadcast. But it introduced the series with the appropriate bang. if He-Man was going to run for 130 episodes, they needed something pretty serious to. They needed something pretty great to introduce these guys. And Diamond Ray of Disappearance did it. Number 2, Teela's Quest. Many fans believe that Teela's Quest was the penultimate episode of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. That one episode transcended the entire series. Teela's Quest was a great episode. It introduced how Man-at-Arms had found Teela, and it pointed out Teela's lineage, a lineage that Teela's not even ready to know yet. It also addressed pretty heated rivalry between Merman and Man-at-Arms that was unfortunately never explored again. I mean, for the duration of Teela's Quest, Merman has a bone to pick with Duncan, the Man-at-Arms, and then that whole rivalry just kind of goes away. Filmation tried to do a lot with Teela's character. In fact, the single episode Teela's Quest may set up Masters of the Universe Revelations for Netflix, but that is a huge stretch since Teela's Quest came out in '83 and Masters of the Universe Revelations wasn't a thing until 2020, 2021. I think it was 2021. Late 2021, I think the first season of Revelations came out. Well, the first half of the first season. But there is a beautiful moment between Teela and the Sorceress just before Teela's memory has to be erased of that beautiful moment between the two of them. And it could very well set up Teela's future in Teela's Quest. Filmation tried time and again to build an episode centered around Teela. Most of the time it worked out pretty well. Once I liked the episode, but it was universally agreed that that episode wasn't the best. Teela's Quest is by far the greatest Teela-centric episode. Honorable mention time. Honorable mentions. Wait a minute. Honorable mentions. Curse of the Spellstone. Curse of the Spellstone was on this VHS of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. I'll leave that there for a second. It was the B-side episode for that particular tape. It put the royal family in a lot of danger with the creeping Horak, and there was a He-Man, Ram-Man, Stratos, Battle-Cat had to face the Fire People. All of the while, Skeletor has the Spellstone, which is the soul, which is responsible for casting damaging storms over Eternia, and is the sole thing that could destroy the creeping Horak that is creeping through the castle at the moment, the Palace of Eternia at the moment. Curse of the Spellstone had a lot to unpack. It was a good episode, though. Another honorable mention from my childhood, specifically from my childhood. The Return of Granomir. Return of Granomir. Which, if I'd been paying attention to the title of the episode, it meant Granomir had to have come from somewhere, but I didn't see his debut episode until the advent of DVD. I didn't care. It was my first He-Man cassette. I had to watch that thing every single night when I was little. Sometimes multiple times per day. Return of Granomir cemented its legacy as a great episode when I was like 2, 3. So it's stuck. That memory is stuck there. Obviously, it's waned with age, or it would have been on the top, in the middle of the top 10 list somewhere. Honorable mention: Evil Seed. Of all of the non-Skeletor villains, Evil Seed is probably the evilest, the vilest. It forced He-Man and Skeletor to join forces with the Sorceress and Orko. But I digress. Skeletor had to join forces with the side of good to even stop Evil Seed because he was threatening everyone on Eternia. Plus, there was that great of Dragon's Gift. That was an Evil Seed. The Huntsman. The Huntsman gave Cringer some of the best dialogue, some of the best in the series. Can we go now, Adam? Castle Grayskull gives me the creeps. Cringer, that's very rude. You apologize right now. I'm sorry you live in such a creepy place, Sorceress. Cringer! I loved it. I loved that scene. That was great. The Cat and the Spider from Season 2. Great honorable mention. It kicked off Season 2 with the appropriate bang. It introduced Webstor as one of Skeletor's villains. Webstor in the Filmation season was never the best villain, but he was good enough as Season 2. It introduced Katrina and the Cat People, and it paired off Katrina and Battle Cat for all of one episode, and then Katrina was never seen again. Oh, poor Battle Cat. Journey to Stone City introduced Vulcan and the people of Stone City. Evil Lyn, Webstor, Cobra Khan steal a very important device from Stone City and convince Vulcan that He-Man did it. That leads to what was a very good battle when I was little, but it was kind of subpar, kind of brief, because I watched this as an adult. Journey to Stone City, its saving grace very well may be the final scene of the episode, wherein Skeletor is punishing Evil Lyn, Webstor, and Cobra Khan for bringing the Lifebringer to Snake Mountain and bringing He-Man and Vulcan's revenge down on Snake Mountain to get the Lifebringer back. You have to see you have to see it for yourself. It's pretty funny. Origin of the Sorceress. Again, the Sorceress gets the Sorceress, just like Battle Cat, just like She-Ra. She gets the origin story that Filmation never wrote for He-Man, or Skeletor for that matter. But it was great. It introduced Stridor to the series, and it brought Eternia back to a time when who was clearly supposed to be the evil Horde was trying to get a foothold on Eternia. That was a great episode. I'm glad for the advent of DVD, or I would have never seen it. Visitors from Earth. Visitors from Earth is another childhood favorite of mine. It once again explores the tie between Earth and Eternia, and just how easy it apparently is to pass between the two. Um, I mean, again, Marlena Glenn, before she was Queen Marlena, was supposed to have come from Earth. So did Colonel Mark Blaze and... Wait a minute. Yeah, Colonel and Major. Colonel Mark Blaze and Major Andrea Steele. When I was little, this episode was great because it was the first time I saw Screech, it was the first time I saw Spikor, and the first time I saw Too Bad. Now, Screech had been introduced long before this episode, but I didn't manage to catch the one where he first appeared. Into the Abyss. Into the Abyss is another great Season 2 episode. It honestly should have been part of the top 10. Teela falls into the Abyss, gets hurt, and we finally get to see where the power of Grayskull comes from whenever Adam summons it, and yet Teela is still none the wiser. One for All. One for All. Sticky Fingers and the Space Pirates. Again, childhood favorite episode. Again, Skeletor is not making the normal nuisance of himself because now we're dealing with Sticky Fingers and the Space Pirates. Great villains. I thought so when I was little, and I always looked forward to when this episode would come back up on screen. Let alone on that poor tape that we had taped it on, so I was constantly watching it. Betrayal of Stratos. Betrayal of Stratos was another favorite when I was little. Growing up now, it did kind of... if the Egg of Avion gives the people of Avion the power of flight, what good was the Staff of Avion that they had introduced in Season 1? Anyway, number 1. Enough with the honorable mentions. Yeah, He-Man and the Masters of the Universe ran for 130 episodes. They must have just listed about 15 honorable mentions in the middle of a top 10 list. Anyway, number 1. The Dragon Invasion. Yes! This VHS, one more time. The Dragon Invasion. It was episode 9 of He-Man, and honestly, the closest that Skeletor ever came to victory in 130 episodes. Just a second. Release the dragons on... Anyway, Skeletor released the dragons on Castle Grayskull to try to break through it, and he succeeded. He used the Dragon's Pearl to raise the baby dragons into rampaging beasts. Success. And he honestly was on the throne of Castle Grayskull in this episode for a little bit. In my mind, that is successful. That is success for the villain. This has been the very greatest episodes of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, at least in my mind. Thanks. You have the power.